Hello, ladies. Happy Monday. Another day, another moment. How was your weekend? This past weekend was Mother's Day, and I'm hoping that for the mothers out there that you had such an awesome weekend. I hope that you were able to spoil yourself a little as well as be spoiled. So happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. You're wonderful. You're wonderful. And as you always know, I always tell you how wonderful you are anyway. And I always think that you're beautiful and that you're gorgeous as a woman. And being a mom and being able to raise your children and for them to honor you and, just being able to give birth is just an amazing process. And once again, it's something that we can do that men cannot, right? So pat yourself on the back, ladies. Pat yourself on the back for the wonderful things that you do. Okay, ladies, so you are listening to the Estrogen Chronicles, Her Plate, Her Power. Why do we say her plate, her power? Is because with nutrition, you can take back your health from many ways. You either can eradicate the problem, you can help to work with the problem, or you can prepare your body for prevention, right? But nutrition is the way to go, ladies. So we're taking back our plate. There's no condition out there that cannot be somehow solved or helped without proper nutrition. Okay? So keep that in mind. I am your host, Gail Thorpe. I am a functional nutritionist and I am here at your service as a health detective. Now, what does that mean? I get to the bottom line of your health. So with my more than 200 different panels of testing, of everything from genetics on down to regular panels, I have so many things I can test, so many great things for us to know where we stand. Sometimes you don't always want to know where you stand sometimes, but you know what? It's better to know where you stand than to not know where you stand. And that's what I do. I help work with you one-on-one and really help you to get yourself back on track. So with that being said, I want you to relax yourself. I want you to go ahead and grab your water, your juice, your tea, or your coffee. And if you want to really relax a little bit, grab a little bit of your wine. That's fine. And we're going to go ahead and enjoy this podcast together. Okay, so welcome back to the show, ladies. Today we're talking about something most of us only think about when we get a cold or a flu, but it's actually shaping our hormones, our fertility, our pregnancy outcomes, our cancer risk, and even our long-term immune health. Viruses and women's bodies. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today because right now we're going through some situations with a virus that's out there, and I'm hoping it doesn't get really bad. But the hantavirus, I know you guys have heard of it. We've been seeing it on the news, and it's kind of like the talk of the talk, right? So, what does it do? What can viruses do to us as ladies? And we're not going to talk about that particular virus, but we're going to talk overall about viruses, right? So we'll break down how viruses uniquely affect women, what they can do to your reproductive system, how they interact with your hormones, and most importantly, what you can do to protect yourself without living in fear. So if you ever wondered, why do I keep getting infections? Or how worried should I be about HPV, HIV, or other viral STDs? This episode is absolutely for you. Okay, ladies, so let's go ahead and dig in. First, quick foundation. A virus is a tiny infectious particle that cannot reproduce on its own. It has to hijack your cells, use your cellular machinery to make copies of itself, and then spread. So some viruses mostly cause short-term illnesses. You want to maybe think about seasonal flus or many common colds. Others can set up longer-term resistance in the body, like HPV, herpes viruses, hepatitis B, or even HIV. Now, what's important for women's health is not just, do I have a virus or not, but where is it living in the body? How is it interacting with my hormones and my immune system? And what's happening in reproductive tissues like the cervix, the vagina, the uterus, the fallopian tubes, and ovaries? Now, those details are what make the female body's relationship with viruses very different from men. Okay? Very different from men. So let's talk about the big picture here. Why do viruses matter specifically for women? So we know that research actually shows that women experience a unique pattern of infections and of autoimmune diseases compared with men. Okay? Now, here are just a few key points about that. Many viral infectious diseases often affect women either more often or more severely. For example, genital herpes, for herpes simplex virus 2, is nearly twice as common in women as in men. And some infections impact fertility. So let's say cause pelvic inflammatory disease or increase the risk of miscarriages or birth defects if they're acquired during pregnancy. And then there's the hormonal shifts across the menstrual cycle and during pregnancy, and it changes the immune responses in the vaginal environment. Now, this can actually increase susceptibility to certain viral infections at specific times. Okay, did you even know that one? So again, our hormonal shifts during our menstrual cycle, guys, and during pregnancy, it actually changed immune responses in your vaginal environment, which can increase your susceptibility to certain viral infections at specific times. So you see how important it is for us to get into this and know, right? How many of you had an idea that that was or could happen? So now, women also generally mount a stronger immune response than men to many viruses, which can be protective. But it may partially explain why women have higher rates of autoimmune conditions where the immune system turns against the body's own tissues. Okay, so we've talked about some of those things. We talked about thyroid. Okay, the other episode ago. So we talked about this. Okay, so I like to dig deeper. I want us to understand out there. I want you guys to understand all of these different things that are just normal things that we are living with and how it affects us. Because a lot of times we're not taken seriously sometimes, I hate to say, right? It's always kind of brushed away. And for me, my goal, it is always my goal, is to basically demystify our health in a lot of ways and a lot of things that we deal with on a daily basis, and to help you to understand how it all plays into our hormones, how it plays into our menstrual cycle and everything else that we deal with as women, right? So we can really get to know our bodies. So this isn't just about catching a bug, okay? It's about how being a female body changes the whole terrain that viruses land on. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now here's a concept most people have never heard of. It's the vaginal varroa. You might already know about the vaginal microbiome, the community of bacteria that live in the vagina and help protect against infection. Now, alongside that bacterial world, there's also a community of viruses, the vaginal varroa. Okay? Now, I do have a call coming in, ladies. So I'm going to just put you on a brief hold and I'll be right back, okay? Give me 1 second. Okay, ladies, I am back. So that was someone who wanted to make an appointment, right? So I told you this is what I do. This is what I do, right? So anyway, back to our scheduled show. So researchers have found that multiple viral species are present in the lower female reproductive tract of most healthy women, not just women with infections. Okay? So again, different species, even if you're healthy, still lives in the lower female reproductive tract, right? So that is something that is concerning. I'm not going to say that you have to be afraid about it, but it's something that we need to understand. So with hormone inflections or fluctuations over the menstrual cycle can shift the levels of specific viruses in the vagina, including herpes viruses, and may influence how susceptible you are to infections at different phases of your cycle. So this is helping you to understand that when you have your female cycle, believe it or not, it actually can also make you susceptible to certain viruses during that time, right? So this is something that we need to be mindful of, we need to be aware about. So with that, increased viral diversity and disruptions in the virome are linked with conditions like bacterial vaginosis, cervical cancer progression, adverse pregnancy outcomes, and inflammatory diseases. So rather than no viruses equal healthy, viruses equal bad, it's more like there is always a background of low-level viral activity. So problems start when the ecosystem becomes imbalanced from hormonal changes, dealing with smoking, unprotected intimacies with multiple partners, if you tend to still douche, or a weakened immunity. Now this is why vaginal health habits and intimacy health choices matter so much for long-term outcomes, including cancer risk and pregnancy. Okay? So now let's talk through some of the main viral players that show up in women's health and what they can actually do in the body. So the first one we're going to talk about is HPV, which is the human papilloma virus. So HPV is one of the most important viruses to understand if you have a cervix, and we all do. So HPV is extremely common. Most sexually active people can be exposed at some point. Now, certain high-risk types of HPV are responsible for the vast majority of cervical cancers. So there actually has an estimate of around 99% of cervical cases actually with HPV. Okay? Now, most HPV infections clear on their own within a couple of years, but persistent infection with high-risk types, especially in the setting of inflammation and microbiome disruptions, can actually lead to pre-cancerous changes and eventually cancer. Now, the good news, though, there are vaccines that prevent infection and the most dangerous HPV types, and cervical screening can catch changes early, long before cancer develops. So that's the good news. Okay? Number 2. I hope you're writing this down, ladies. It's so important. Herpes simplex virus, HSV. So genital herpes, usually from HSV2, is significantly more common in women than men. Okay? So with this virus, it lives in the nerve cells and can reactivate, causing recurrent sores or sometimes very mild symptoms that go unnoticed. Now in pregnancy, if a woman has an active outbreak around the time of delivery, it isn't managed appropriately. It can pose serious risk to the baby. So if she has an outbreak during that time, it can, if it's not managed correctly, it can pose a great risk. While there is actually no cure, antiviral medication can reduce outbreaks and the frequency and lower your transmission rate. Okay? The third, HIV. So HIV is a virus that targets the immune system and without treatment can lead to full-blown AIDS. And women, HIV is associated with more frequent and harder to treat vaginal yeast infections, and bacterial vaginosis. So you tend to have an increased risk of cervical cancer and a higher risk of heart disease and other chronic conditions as women age with HIV. Now, for pregnant women, HIV can pass from mother to baby during pregnancy, birth, or even breastfeeding if not properly managed. Now, the good news is that modern treatment and prevention tools like antiretroviral therapy and PrEP can drastically reduce those risks when used consistently. Okay? Number 4, we have other respiratory and systematic viruses like flu, COVID-19, and etc. So respiratory viruses like seasonal influenza and COVID-19 can hit pregnant women much harder. Pregnancy alters the immune system, heart, and lungs, which can increase the severity of illnesses like the flu and COVID-19 and pneumonia. That's why guidelines strongly recommend up-to-date vaccinations for those respiratory viruses in pregnancy when safe and available. Now, these infections are not just bad colds during pregnancy. They can actually increase the risk of complications for both the mother and the baby. Now let's zoom in on fertility in pregnancy because this is where viruses can have some of the most serious consequences. So for fertility, some infections of the reproductive tract, let's say bacterial or viral, are linked with scarring, chronic inflammation, and increased risk of infertility. So pelvic inflammatory disease from untreated genital infections can damage actually your fallopian tubes. Did you hear that? Pelvic inflammatory disease can actually, if not treated, it can actually damage your fallopian tubes. So chronic inflammation from recurrent or persistent infections can disrupt normal reproductive function. During your pregnancy, some infections actually cross the placenta and can cause miscarriages, preterm birth, birth defects, or growth restrictions in the baby. Now, others can be transmitted during delivery or breastfeeding if not managed. And keep in mind that higher viral diversity in the vaginal environment during pregnancy has been associated with increased risk of preterm birth. Now, keep in mind that this one major reason prenatal care emphasizes vaccination where appropriate, screening for infections, and close follow-up if you test positive for something like HIV, hepatitis B, or syphilis. Okay? But let's get practical. What can you realistically do to prevent yourself from harmful viral infections without getting overwhelmed, because I don't want you to get too overwhelmed by this. But we want to know what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to break down this into 5 areas. So 1, vaccination, your strongest shield. For people who are very intimate and blood-borne viruses, pre-exposure vaccination is one of the most effective tools we can have. Now, your key vaccines to talk with your doctor about or your provider, could be a nurse practitioner as well. HPV vaccine. Now that protects against the most dangerous cancer-causing types of HPV. Now that is best given in adolescents, but catch-up vaccination is recommended up to certain ages depending upon the guidelines. And then you have a hepatitis B vaccine that protects against a virus that can cause chronic liver disease and can be transmitted through intimacy or by the blood. And then you have the flu and COVID-19 vaccines, particularly important in pregnancy and for women with chronic conditions, as these infections can be more severe. Now, vaccines do not encourage risk-taking behavior. That doesn't mean that you can go here and do certain things all the time, if you know what I'm talking about. But they quietly reduce the background risk of severe disease. And you want to have safer intimacies practices, since many impactful viruses are normally transmitted on an intimate level. Okay? Intimate health is viral health. Now, we have different evidence-based practices to include the use of protective things like condoms, if used correctly. Male latex condoms reduce the risk of HIV, HPV infection, and associated with diseases like genital herpes and several other STIs, when they cover the infected area. Consider additional barriers. So, female condoms and dental dams can offer added protection, especially for oral intimacies, or when male condoms are not used. You also want to take a look at limiting your intimacy partners, okay? And avoid partners who have many other partners to reduce exposure to HPV and other STIs. And you want to get regular STI screening, so appropriate to your age, your anatomy, and risk. This is crucial because many viral infections are silent for years. So birth control pills, IUDs, or implants do not protect against viruses. Keep that in mind. They simply prevent pregnancy only. Okay? And number 3, protecting your vaginal and reproductive health. Because the vaginal ecosystem is so central to women's resistance or susceptibility to infection, small habits make a difference. So let's talk about some supportive practices. Avoid douching. I know that was very popular back in the day, back in the 50s, 40s. I think even in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. But it's not as popular now, okay? Because they have since found that it can lead to other things. It's not always safe for that ecosystem. So you don't hear many people talk about it as much, right? So in this case, we want to avoid it. Douching actually washes out protective bacteria and is associated with higher risk of HIV and other STIs. Be gentle with soaps and products, guys. Harsh scented products can disrupt the normal flora and make it easier for problematic bacteria and viruses to thrive. And you want to seek care for recurrent discharge, odor, or irritation. And sometimes we don't seek care when those things happen. We tend to feel like, okay, I'm going to go to the store, go to CVS, go to Walgreens and get something to help with myself. But then sometimes, if it's reoccurring too often, you'll notice that those things no longer help. So you have to go. Like I said, don't guess. You want to always test. So persistent bacterial vaginosis and yeast infections can actually signal an imbalance, and in some settings have been linked with increased risk of acquiring viral STIs. So think of your vaginal microbiome and your varome as a forest. You want diversity, but not chaos. Overcleaning, multiple partners without protection, and chronic inflammation are all like repeated wildfires. Okay? And keep that in mind. So we want to basically strengthen our overall immune system. Now, while you can't biohack your way out of every infection, you can support an immune environment that clears many viruses more effectively. So things like prioritizing your sleep, as a chronic sleep deprivation impairs immune responses to viral infections and vaccines. You want to make sure to manage your chronic stress. You hear me talk about this all the time. Have you noticed that stress comes up in every topic that we have talked about here at Estrogen Chronicles? It comes up because, again, stress is number one to affecting our systems. So we want to manage chronic stress, which can trigger reactivation of latent viruses like herpes or potentially influence the varome. We want to avoid smoking and vaping. Tobacco use has been associated with changes in the vaginal and cervical environment that may promote persistent HPV infection, right? And cervical cancer progression. Okay? Now keep in mind, these are not magic shields, but they actually tip the odds in a better favor, more so in your favor, in other words. So, for women at higher risk of HIV, including those with partners living with HIV or people who inject drugs, there are specific tools that can be used to help. Okay? So the first would be condoms. That remains a cornerstone to prevent HIV and many other STIs. And then PrEP, okay, which is basically pre-exposure to prophylaxis, is a medication taken by HIV-negative people to prevent infection. Now, it is highly effective when used consistently. So for women living with HIV, consistent antiretroviral or retroviral therapy not only protects your health, but also dramatically reduces the chance of passing HIV to other partners or to a baby during pregnancy and birth. But talking openly with your health provider about, which is your doctor, about these options is an act of self-protection, not a moral statement. Okay? Now, if you're listening and thinking, okay, well, where do I even start? I've covered so much so far. Here are a few conversation openers that I want to help you with, where you can take to your next appointment. So when you're talking with your health care provider, which is your doctor, you can say, can we review which vaccines I've had, especially for HPV, hepatitis V, and flu, and whether I need any boosters or catch-up doses? You can also say, what STI screenings are appropriate for me given my age, my intimacy history, and relationship status? The other thing that you can say is, I get recurrent vaginal infections. Could we look at what might be disrupting my vaginal microbiome and how to reduce my risk of STIs. And you also can say, am I a candidate for HIV, PrEP, or other preventive strategies? Okay. Now, your doctor or your provider, whichever you want to say, deserves to have that conversation with you. Okay? And you deserve to have your conversation with your provider, who can hold these conversations without judgment. Because talking to a friend about these different things, and sometimes we do that. Sometimes we could be like, you could be talking to one of your best friends and be like, hey, I keep getting these infections in my vagina, I believe it's bacterial vaginosis. What do you suggest? Have you had this problem? What do you think I should do? Right? They're not going to know. They're not a doctor. Okay? So you need to make sure that you talk with your provider, because technically they are the ones, of course, who's going to know what to do, if you're the right candidate for this, based upon your age, based upon your lifestyle. Okay? And as we can see, that even if we're healthy, our system can still have remains of viruses. Okay? As I talked about not too long ago, a few moments ago. So it's very important that we take care of our health, ladies. So it's easy to hear all of this and feel overwhelmed. I understand. But here's the reframe I want you to hold on to. Viruses are part of the environment we live in. Now, some are harmful, some are neutral passengers, and some may even play complex roles. We're just beginning to understand, especially in places like the vaginal virome. Your job, and I want you to hear this, is not to create a sterile bubble around yourself, because that's not what I'm saying at all. That's impossible. You won't be able to do it. None of us can do it. Okay? But your job is to do this. Your job is to understand your specific risk factors, use powerful tools like vaccination, safer intimacies, and regular screenings, and support your body's ecosystems, your immune system, and your microbiome, so they can do what they're designed to do. Basically, information is power here, not panic fuel. I am so not wanting to do that. I don't want you to go crazy here. I just want to give you the information that's needed. So basically, to recap, viruses can influence women's health far beyond I got sick for a week. They can affect fertility. They can affect your pregnancy, chronic inflammation, cancer risk, and everyday quality of life. And at the same time, we have more tools than ever to prevent severe outcomes, from vaccines and condoms to PrEP and smart vaginal health habits. Okay? That is the key. That is the key. Now, normally at this point, I would be talking about how can you take back your plate, because that's what we do here. But there's actually going to be a part 2 to this. Okay? And the part 2, we are going to unpack how nutrition, blood sugar, and hormones interact with viral infections in women. So we're going to dig a little bit more into that next week, ladies. Okay? But that does not mean we don't have a gift for you. We do. We definitely do. So, we've covered so many great things today, ladies, about viruses and how it affects us. And we know now that viruses still can live in our system a lot longer and can cause problems in pregnancy, problems with your menstrual cycle, problems with your hormones. Now, quite a few episodes back, I talked about taking a probiotic for your vaginal area. And when we talk about our vaginal microbiome being imbalanced, we need to have it balanced. We need to have a certain amount of bad bacteria and a certain amount of good bacteria, right? But in order for us to do that, we have to have, or probably, not want to say probably, we need to take a probiotic specifically for that area, because what that does is give you the right amount of strands to create that balance so that it will not become imbalanced. Okay? Now, if you have questions on that and what to take, again, I'm a functional nutritionist and I do have provider back supplements that you cannot get in the stores, by the way. Some things you might can, a lot of things you cannot. But I do offer vaginal probiotics for you to take. I don't think you understand. Well, hopefully now you'll understand, I'm hoping, just how important it is to keep that environment balanced. Because we can see that when it's not balanced, it opens up the opportunity for more viruses, more bacteria to come through. So when we're trying to get pregnant, or if we just trying to be healthy, trying to prevent odors and discharge and things of that nature, how can we prevent that if we're not taking the things to keep it actually balanced? I know this is a lot to take in, a lot to think about, but it's so very important. Okay? And I'll tell you in a few moments how you can learn more, or basically work with me on this. So first though, we're going to talk about the gift. The gift. So if you're new here, after every episode and whatever the condition that we're discussing, I always give a gift. And the reason why I do that, and I call it a gift, because you're able to start immediately on whatever the problem is, to start helping to take back your plate, take back your power, and take back your health. So I like to give maybe a juice or a smoothie recipe. Sometimes it could be a recipe for a particular salad or meal. It just all depends. But I give that to you so that you can start immediately to a better you, whatever that condition is. So we talked today about viruses, and basically we need to what? We need to build up our immune system. So I have a great juice for you that's going to help to do just that. This is all organic, okay? Just to keep you informed about that. I do not believe in getting things that are not organic. It's so important because as women, we don't need the pesticides. That's the last thing we do because they actually disrupt our hormones, okay? So we're going to go with 2 medium oranges that are peeled, 1 large carrot, scrubbed. No need to peel if it's organic, and it should be because I just mentioned why. And 1 small beet, like a golf ball size, scrubbed and trimmed. 1-inch piece of fresh ginger, scrubbed. 1-inch piece of fresh turmeric root, scrubbed. And a half organic lemon that is peeled, cut off, but a little white pith left. Okay? And 1 small green apple for sweetness. That's cored. Now this is all optional. You can do a pinch of black pepper if you want to include with the turmeric, which helps the absorption of the turmeric. Okay? Now, this combo is grounded in nutrients and ingredients repeatedly used in evidence-based immune juice recipes, okay, that actually feature citrus, carrot, beet, ginger, and turmeric for vitamin C, carotenoids, and anti-inflammatory compounds, which is so important because again, we got to keep that inflammation down as well. We got to be in balance. We have to keep the inflammation down because this helps internally to keep our body strong enough to resist viruses. And if we're not cleaning out our liver often, it doesn't have to be every day, but at least 2 to 3 times in a year to clean out our livers, we tend to have remnants of viruses still left in our body, which can also spike up based upon lifestyle. So what we want to do is we want to wash and prepare all the produce as listed. We want to scrub it well, peel only the citrus. We run everything through a juicer, starting with the softer items like the oranges and the lemon, then the carrot, beet, ginger, and the turmeric. And if we're using a blender, we want to add 1.5 cup of filtered water. Blend it till smooth, then strain through a nut milk bag or a fine sieve. And then we want to stir to taste and adjust with extra lemon if you want for more tartness. Okay? If you like. And you can also add a teeny pinch of black pepper if you're using turmeric. And as I always say, you want to drink this immediately, ideally within 15 to 20 minutes at the longest, to minimize the vitamin C loss and oxidation. Now, you heard me mention this before, guys. If you're not new here, you definitely know that. I've mentioned it several times. When I present these different juices and smoothies, you want to take it right away. You don't want to just sitting around forever because it starts to lose its nutrients. So the quicker and faster you drink it, you don't have to drink it fast, but you want to drink it right away after you finish preparing it, right? So it can have the best absorption of nutrients to your cells, because that's what we need to feed. We need to feed the cells. So why this juice supports your immune defense? Let's break this down a little bit. Citrus, the orange and the lemon. So oranges and lemons are rich in vitamin C, which supports the function of various immune cells and enhances their ability to protect against infections. And vitamin C also helps to regenerate other antioxidants and may shorten the duration or severity of respiratory infections for some people. And carrots, for instance. Carrots are high in beta-carotene, which your body converts to vitamin A. Vitamin A is crucial, okay, for maintaining healthy mucous membranes in your respiratory and gut lining. And these are physical barriers that stop viruses from entering and spreading. And then beet. Beets actually provide the vitamin C, the folate, the potassium, and the antioxidant pigments, okay, that help reduce oxidative stress and support blood flow. Now, lower inflammation and better circulation support the immune system with beets. Okay? It helps to support the immune system's ability to move cells and signaling molecules where they're needed. And ginger. I love the way ginger smells, by the way. Ginger has been documented as anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antibacterial, and antiviral properties in labs and animal studies. Okay? With ginger, it may help calm inflammation triggered by viral infections and help to support a more balanced immune response while also soothing nausea and digestive discomfort. Have you heard about taking a raw ginger and peeling it and just using some hot water and drinking it like tea? If you feel nauseous, any type of stomach disorders, it will calm it. Trust me, I've done it. I know. And then turmeric, of course, using black pepper. Okay. Turmeric contains curcumin and is a powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compound that modulates immune cell activity and inflammatory pathways. Now, what that black pepper, as I mentioned, contains pepperine, which can increase curcumin's bioavailability. So even a tiny pinch helps you get more out of the turmeric. So now having the beet, the carrot, the citrus synergy is what's happening here. This recipe actually is, it actually helps to support a synergy in your system. So a recipe that combines the beets and the carrots, the ginger, the apple, and even the citrus are often highlighted for immune support because they deliver vitamin C, vitamin A precursors, and anti-inflammatory compounds in one glass, guys. So basically, these nutrients actually work together. They help to support a better barrier function of your skin and mucosa. They provide antioxidant protection as the immune system generates free radicals to help to fight the viruses. And it helps to regulate inflammation, so your response is strong but not excessive. Okay? Wow. A lot of great stuff. Now, even though drinking the juice, even a very nutrient-dense organic one like the one I'm giving you, it cannot block or cure viruses on its own. It supports the foundations, the micronutrient sufficiency it gives you, the antioxidant status, and of course a less inflamed internal environment, which all help in your immune system. It actually helps it to do its job more effectively. But you still need to create that environment of sleep, protein-balanced meals, hygiene, okay, when appropriate, and vaccines and medical care. Those things are very important. So basically, back to the lifestyle. We talk about that often. Make sure you get your sleep. Make sure you put protein in your diet, right? Not even your diet. It's more so your lifestyle, nutrition, okay? And a few episodes ago, we talked about protein and how helpful that is for women's health. So as you notice, guys, over several months that the launching of the Estrogen Chronicles, I've talked about a lot of important topics that affect women's health. And they all tend to have that same synergy. It all goes back to lifestyle. It all goes back to knowing also what we're deficient in as well. Because when we know what we're deficient in, it helps us to get it under control, right? It helps us. Because imagine, as we talked about, how you need the antioxidants, you need the vitamin C, you need the A to help with immune, to help with preventing viruses. But if you're so deficient, how can you help to prevent any of that? You need to know where you are. Okay? So we talked about all of this today. And we have talked about this over several months. And I hope that you found that this is informative for you as a woman. Because like I said, often our health is sometimes ignored. Sometimes not even taken seriously. Have you noticed if you had very heavy periods and you go in and you talk to your doctor about it? Unfortunately, sometimes they chalk it up. And this can be women gynecologists as well as men. Oh, it's just your period. But it's not just your period when you're having excessively heavy bleeding. It could be fibroids. It could be something else going on. Not to mention, it takes away your quality of life. But not often people understand that when it comes down to our health. Have you noticed that sometimes when you feel moody and grumpy, you don't even know what's going on? Oh, they just chalk it up to sometimes, maybe you're just going through a little something today. You'll be fine. But sometimes it's more. Sometimes it could be dealing with your thyroid, which, helps in regulation of your hormones, right? We talked about this. We talked about these things. And people need to dig deeper. So my goal is to take away, demystify all of those things so that you can know more about yourself. You can actually hear different symptoms, even though sometimes they can marry each other. But you can understand how the body works better when it comes down to our health and how things are connected. This is what I'm here for, and this is what I love. So I hope that you can hear it in my voice. But if you want to work with me, and I would love to have you on board, I only take a handful of clients at a time because it's important for me to give each lady or ladies that come to me that personalized attention. So imagine being able to finally have the attention to work on you on all levels, on your stress, of course on your health, looking at your genetics, also your goals in life, right? I encompass all of that. So I really take the time to get you together from A to Z. And whatever the condition that you're dealing with, I can write up a customized program for that, as well as customized supplements. And I have it now, ladies, that based upon the results of your micronutrient test to see what you're deficient in. Let's say that you have more than enough vitamin C in your body, but let's say you're deficient in vitamin D. I can do customized, not me, but the company that I partner with, wherein I can actually have customized supplements on what you need based upon the results. So I think I pretty much have it all, ladies. So I want you to go to www.nutritionudesign.com, book your session with me, which is an appointment, right? So that we can discuss what's needed for you. So we can take it to the next level. Book your appointment today, ladies. Don't hesitate. I'm telling you, it's needed. It's needed. And because I am a woman and I understand, I'm going to give you that attention that you need. So once again, go to www.nutritionudesign.com to book your appointment, or you can even reach out to me by giving me a call. The number is there as well. And I hope to hear from you. Oh, we covered a lot today, but I felt that this topic is extremely important in light of what's going on right now. We did not cover the actual virus that's going on right now because there's still a lot of questions about that particular one. And if I get any more information about it, I'm going to be the first to share. But at least I wanted to give you the foundation of what virus can do and how they actually can disrupt. Our hormones. It can cause further problems, could be even cancer, cervical cancer, inflammatory problems, right? So we need to understand that. We need to understand that viruses can still, even if we're healthy, can still live there, still live in our ecosystems, right? So that's why it's so important to know about these things. So like I said, check out the website. Definitely make an appointment with me so that we can take it a step further and get that customized program that you need. And as always, I say, your health is your wealth. If you're not healthy, it doesn't matter how much money you may have. You're not going to be able to see and enjoy it until you get your health in order. Okay? The other thing is, wellness is not a focus. It is a lifestyle. And it is, guys, as you see, I always talk about, and I made it clear just even today, even though drinking that juice and taking your vitamins and every good thing, it's not going to be the only thing that you need. You're still going to need to get the quality of sleep that you need to get and some level of exercise and mobility. Okay, and keeping your stress levels down. You still have to make sure it's a lifestyle and include that plate and bring back your power through your plate. Those are all part of lifestyle changes. And my last thing, I am hoping that you have been enjoying this journey of understanding your body and how it applies to so many different things in life. We've covered a lot over these last couple of months, and I've so much enjoyed it, trust me. But in order for me to help others, like I'm helping you, hopefully, I believe I am, you have to share, guys. Please share, 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 share. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that you know when I have shows that come out. And pretty soon I'm going to start doing some live shows too and have guests. So you want to make sure be up on that, guys. So make sure you share with your friends and your family. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that we can get our ladies to be informed and not taking as, oh, you're just moody for the day. No, I really have a condition and I need you to help me. So stay tuned, ladies, for next week. This will be, as I mentioned, a part 2. We'll dig deeper on how we can take back our plate with nutrition and as it applies to these viruses and how we can really get our health back in order. So I'm hoping that this week would be fantastic for you. I hope that you will have a time where you can spoil yourself and even spoil others too. And I just hope that you really, really enjoy it. So with that being said, I will surely see you soon. Have a great week, guys.